Off and running here on Picks and Roll, all things NBA and then some, as we are continuing to grow in the right direction with all of our coverage. Good news is we got the right people holding it down. Sean Barnard, NBA insider, Sixers, all things go-to for us here on The Gambler. I am Sean Brace. Jon Jansen joining us. Three-man weave here, talking some Sixers as they get ready for game number 3 in the home opener coming up this evening at 7:30 p.m. at the Wells Fargo Center. We will open up DraftKings in just a second, but you know, it's interesting this way the season has started so far, Sean. I'll come right to you. Last night, 114-107. Here's the bottom line. I have wanted to go live after these games. Like, that tells you all you need to know.
Oh, yeah.
So at game 1, of course, they lose on the road to Milwaukee. Tough spot, 1-point loss, although Mel hitting that buzzer beater at the end. So technically it should have been 4 or 5. But they were up, ended up coughing it. The lead up 16-2 run by the Bucks. I mean, from start to finish, essentially take away that 3-minute spurt where they got outscored and gave up that run to the Bucks. They really played well in that game. Last night on the road, get Nick Nurse his first win as far as the head coach for the 76ers, 114-107, covered the 5-point spread, 214.5 was your total on that one, of course, went over there. And a lot to like, and I'm going to shut up because his name is Tyrese Maxey.
Absolutely. That is the biggest thing. I think that's far and away the biggest takeaway from these first 2 games is we're seeing this kid grow up and be a legitimate number 2 option on a contending team right in front of our very eyes. I mean, through the first 2 games, the number one thing that jumps out to me, 15 assists and 1 turnover. He's starting to become a point guard. And there's moments where you've seen it. In the first game against the Bucks, there were a couple nice moments where he hit Embiid with a nice pocket pass. They had a little 2-man action with the pick and roll. And then there were moments last night. There was one play specifically that jumped out where he hit Kelly Oubre on a little duck to the basket. And you just saw the way he processed that. His first option wasn't there. His second option wasn't there. And then he finds Oubre with the third. And to see him go through, still make the right decision-making is huge. And that's not even considering that he still dropped 30-plus points in both the first 2 matchups, that he still has that ability. And I do genuinely believe that the maturation of Tyrese Maxey is more so about him from a mental standpoint, realizing that I am this dude. I truly am that good. And the more he continues to figure that out throughout the season, the better this team as a whole is going to benefit from it.
I also think the coach has something to do with that. And he said it. He said it at the end. He said it at the end. Tyrese said it after last night's game. You know, that's a big difference from the coaching standpoint where he was asked, and that's why he gave this answer. So it wasn't like, hey, I'm taking a shot at Doc Rivers, but, you know, more supportive, a guy that believes, put him in the right spots. And that's been well documented that Doc kind of missed out on that last year with specifically Tyrese Maxey. But we went back and forth on it to start the podcast, to start the season. There were some pluses, there were some minuses. It is what it is. But what we're seeing right now, Jansen, Maxey, he's got to be making you a believer at least. As this team is 1-1.
He is, and I think I do already through 2 games have to eat crow on this. I've never seen Maxey play like this.
Yeah.
Ever. And he had opportunities to last year, right? He had opportunities to run an offense, and he didn't do very well. They had to take him out of that spot because he couldn't perform well. And now he is, I mean, he's the offense.
Yeah.
And one of the things you worry about, it's not Maxey's scoring. I think Maxey's scoring is still good. But the one thing you worry about is James Harden, I think, was directly tied with helping Embiid get better looks, with helping Embiid score more. And I think yesterday's game, that was more encouraging, that the pick and roll, that him and Embiid, the 2-man game was unbelievable.
Yeah.
A lot of that, I think, has to do with Nick Nurse. I think Nick Nurse certainly helps out, and I think it's helping Maxey out. But I don't think you're skipping a beat without James Harden as a passer. That's what I was worried about. And now Maxey, look, the 34 points is great. No turnovers is even better. That's perfect. But the fact that he can still feed Embiid without James Harden, that is the most important thing for me to see. And it's just a bonus to get everything else what he's doing.
Yeah, and some of it's absolutely the structure of the offense. The things already look much different under Nick Nurse. It's not the stagnant guys staying in place in the way it was with Doc Rivers, that there are guys flying around. We're seeing things. And that's positively impacting Maxey. And I also think he obviously needs to continue developing from an IQ standpoint as he becomes better. It's just going to happen the more reps that he gets. But I think there's an element that he could even be a more dynamic 2-man partner with Embiid when you consider the downhill burst that he possesses. That's something James Harden just does not have. when you add in the fact of him being able to turn the corner, get downhill, and have his array of finishing ability, that's another way. And keep in mind, he can still do the same step back three that James Harden can. Absolutely.
He's not scared at all.
No, 7 of 9 from 3 last night. He's got it. And as I said, another thing I noticed with the 3-point regard is he's now taking deeper 3-pointers too. Is he's taking them from 3 or 4 feet behind the line.
Like Damian Lillard range.
Yeah, that opens up an entire offense. When you have to start respecting that from a guy, that opens up the entire half court, that spreads the floor even further, and that really just opens up so much more that you can do. So I've been nothing short of blown away from the first 2 games, and I think he's going to keep getting better.
Well, how about this from the standpoint of the props over at DraftKings Sportsbook? Of course, he opened up game 1, 23.5 win over. We scored 30 in both so far. 23.5 ended up with 31. Last night, 24.5 ends up with 34. Do you guys know what his number is today?
What is it?
Jansen, have you looked?
No, I have not.
How about a jump to 28.5 on DraftKings Sportsbook?
And the bet that I've been excited about, that I've been hyping up, has been for the first 2 games, I got him at over 29.5 points and assists. I think that was the way to bet Maxey. I think it only took 2 games for the books to catch up to that one. So we might be out of luck there, but I still think that those are still numbers that you can jump on. That 30 may be a little high. I do like the points and assist combos because I think that there's going to be games where he's more of a playmaker and games where he's more of a scorer, and that's going to happen with the ebbs and flows.
I wonder when that part is going to catch up with sports books, his assist numbers,
right?
Because they obviously weren't high. He wasn't that kind of player, and now with him in control of the offense and playing as well as he is, I think those numbers might continue to stay at that level.
Yeah, and Joel Embiid's another guy I would keep in mind from the playmaking standpoint. He had 8 assists last night, only one turnover. That's a number you should keep an eye on. That's typically in the 3.5, 4.5 range. There's going to be nights like last night where he had 8 assists. There's just more options for him to pass through. That life is being made easier for him. That with the Doc Rivers system, as much as Embiid deserves some criticism for not being this superb passer in the way that he is, there's just better options for him now, that there's cuts to the basket. There's guys in different spots. It's easier decisions for him to make. And I think the numbers are going to replicate that.
Yeah. And I think, he does deserve criticism for a lot of the turnovers. I think that were his fault, but I don't know how far I can criticize him though, or how hard I can criticize him for that, because it's only 2 games in this system.
Yeah.
And he's already done things that I've never seen him do before, and things that Maxey has done that I've never seen him do before.
Yeah.
So there does have to be something in my mind that goes, well, maybe it was the system.
Yeah.
Maybe there was something wrong with Doc Rivers' system. I didn't know how much that would actually be able to change things, but Embiid had problems, but to be fixed in 2 games, that doesn't get fixed in 2 games. What his issues were, what Maxey's issues were, I think that's got to be up to coaching.
And they've got a ways to go. They even, especially in game 1, there's moments where people just aren't quite on the same page yet. Defensively, I see it big time as well. That's just going to get better the more they play. But the fact that we're still seeing some positive results early on is super intriguing. And I think all these guys, that was really the gamble made by Daryl Morey, that he looked at this roster and said, Doc Rivers was the biggest thing holding this back. That I think if we bring in Nick Nurse, we allow him to run a new system, we kind of modernize this offense in a different way, that it could produce different results down the stretch. And we'll see if that's the case, but the early signs are very encouraging.
Yeah, one thing you pointed out about Embiid and his assist, he's gone over both of those totals so far, 2 games in. So, again, the books might be catching up on that number. We'll fire up DraftKings Sportsbook, take a look at the assists as well. The numbers, or the points scored, they have not dropped. It's 29.5 for Joel Embiid this evening. Once again, Sixers and Trailblazers going head-to-head for the home opener. Man, I really wanted to go to this, but it's just been a crazy, crazy weekend. So
coward.
Yeah, enjoy it from the house. Sixers are 7-point favorites. 216.5 is your total in this one. I want to continue to talk about some of the new with the 76ers, and I love the nickname K9. Oh, Kelly Oubre.
That is an A-tier nickname.
Oh, it definitely is. I didn't know it. Did you know it?
That and Tsunami Poppy's his other one. That's a Kelly Oubre special as well.
Tsunami Poppy.
I don't know which one I like better.
Oh, K9 is so much better.
K9's good.
He reminds me of a
Tsunami
dog.
Poppy's also, that's fantastic.
He reminds me of a dog.
That sounds like a DJ name. DJ Tsunami Poppy. That sounds really good.
Too long. Anyways, K9 though is nasty. He had a great game, 2 good games, and he's coming off the bench and just giving you the opportunity to get somebody out there to get you some points, and something we definitely haven't seen like that, right? And, Maxey was the guy that was coming off the bench, sure, but other than that, like, who was the one that would stand out the most over the past couple of years coming off the bench? But right now, the bench, is it fair to say it should be a strength over the next month or so?
definitely better than they've had in years past. And Kelly Oubre specifically is
but not yet a strength.
I wouldn't say that yet until we see how things shake out. They're still competing for minutes. So last night we saw Daniel House get some burn. He played 12 minutes. Jaden Springer, no minutes. In game one, Jaden Springer, I thought, shined in the first half specifically. So he got an opportunity there. Danny Green saw way too much Danny Green in game one, only played 5 minutes in game two. So I think Nick Nurse is still figuring this out. But it's cool that there's these options that they can choose from on a night-to-night basis. That for so long it felt like we're running through the same script of, we'll see if Shake Milton can come in and do this for a couple minutes, or let's see what Furkan Korkmaz or Matisse Thybulle's got in the tank tonight. Now it's kind of like, maybe tonight's a Patrick Beverley tonight. Maybe it's a Kelly Oubre night. You know, there's these different options that Nick Nurse can go to, and Kelly Oubre has absolutely been leading the charge. He's not my style of basketball player in general, but he's such what these Sixers need, because they've just never had a guy that can get his own offense in the way that he can. And as much as like, we're going to have the ups and downs, we're going to ride the tsunami poppy wave and see his highs and lows there. Like even there was a point in last night's game where he had more shot attempts than Maxey and Embiid at halftime, which is not really what you want, but it is still that hunger that he has. And by the way, I think he's the best cutter that the Sixers have had in several years. That Embiid had 2 assists with him, Maxey had 2 assists or 1 assist to him, all on little backdoor cuts. That is just like an opportunity that has not been there. So for him to have the instinct to get there, to him to get to the basket the right way, and it's going to pay off. So I think everyone's enjoying playing with him, which is a key factor, because that's been kind of one of the, I guess, things held against him in the past, is there is absolutely some hero ball that he plays with, but he also seems to be buying in defensively. I see him doing the gritty work on the defensive end, which is very important. He's kind of answered all questions so far. It's going to be a roller coaster with him. He will go cold at some point, but I'm loving what I'm seeing from Kelly Oubre for sure.
All right, let's go ahead.
For now.
Yeah,
for now. But like we said, 2 games in, and definitely something to like from each. Of course, they came away with the win last night in Toronto, getting Nick Nurse's first victory, and how convenient is that versus his own
and I also
team.
do want to ask, because, you know, now without James Harden, you are down a guard, and so your guards are now, your depth is going to be stretched. Any concerns? I mean, it is concerning. DeAnthony Melton's play, how concerning is it to you?
I think he's the guy that's feeling the effects of Kelly Oubre more than anything. That there were moments, especially when they run that second unit, which typically Oubre and Melton are both in that lineup, that like last night, Melton 1 for 7 from the field. That's not great. He didn't shoot the ball well in the first game either, but 7 shots, I just don't think is enough for him. I would like for him to get more looks from that. Oubre, on the other hand, tossed up 17 last night, and I had even more than that. He had 27 points and even more than 17 shots in game one. So I think Melton will find his stride. He struggled a little bit early on. I'm surprised. I expected him to be a guy that kind of jumped at this new Nick Nurse system. It hasn't been that way through the early games, but still a ton of time in the season. He will get hot, and I think he'll start to, I guess, get a little bit higher up in the pecking order compared to the Kelly Oubres and everything else as the season shakes out.
All right, let's talk a little bit about tonight's game. Once again, a home opener, and I'm curious, number one, Josh Harris going to make the trip up, you think?
Oh, he's probably, I think he's probably chilling in Washington for this one. That would be my guess, is he's watching his Commanders play.
I think he's there, but I think he makes the trip back up.
Okay. A full
does he?
Home and home.
Let's do a Gatorade bet on that.
Okay.
All right. Orange. I'm an orange guy. I say he shows up. I think he's there tonight. It's Nick Nurse's home opener. It's the home opener for the Sixers. So it would be interesting if some fans are going to be vocal. Of course, it will be extra interesting what happens in the game between the Birds and the Commanders. We're not talking football, though. We're talking 76ers basketball. Tonight, Trailblazers 7-point favorites. Portland, a little desperate. Not too much of a shock to the system. They are 0-2, searching for their first victory here. What is the one thing that you are looking at for the Sixers to come out on top, cover that big 7-point spread? What's the number one item on your plate as far as a recipe is for successes?
I'll start with Joel Embiid, currently listed as questionable, so keeping an eye on that. James Harden still ruled out with his reconditioning, which I think is the...
Should this be a game that they do sit Joel Embiid? It's the home opener.
No,
you can't.
It absolutely should not be.
No.
I would be very upset if he does not play today. I think that'd be a poor decision.
But it's specifically based off of his health. If he doesn't play tonight, it's something real.
I mean, the alert that I got from Underdog Fantasy was rest was the title for
Come
Embiid.
on.
Yeah, so you have to
You're
play.
going to sit your star, the reigning MVP, at the home opener?
I would be a very bad move in my mind. I would be very against this.
They better not do that.
No.
That's not good.
That's not okay.
No.
From a league standpoint, from a Sixers standpoint, from Joel Embiid standpoint.
Yeah.
All right.
So yeah, that's one thing I'm keeping my eye on. I'm also very excited to see this Tyrese Maxey versus Scoot Henderson kind of duel. They're a little bit similar as players. Scoot's probably got a additional, I guess, vertical pop athletically compared to Maxey. Scoot also has not played his best basketball to start the season, started really cold. So I'm excited to get a closer look at him. I truthfully haven't watched a Trailblazer game start to finish through either of their first two so far. So I'm excited to actually get a full picture of him.
Shame on you.
Yeah. The DeAndre Ayton thing intrigues me as well. I'm curious how he exactly looks. I've been an Ayton believer. I think it's a good opportunity for him to get a fresh start. So I guess from the Sixers standpoint, it's more of the same of them continuing to harp on their system. I think if they play their best basketball, there's no shot this Trailblazers team can touch them. But I do think that they have more athletes. They've got more versatility on the defensive end, that this is a tougher task than I think most people give the Trailblazers credit. That as much as they are a young team that probably is going to be pretty high up there in the lottery odds by the end of the season, they're going to be a competitive team that tries every night, has some guys that have their flashes. So I don't think this is a rollover game by any means.
All right. Well, Sixers are pretty busy over the next couple of days. They got the game tonight, then they play on Thursday, and they play on Saturday. They got the Raptors coming back in on Thursday at home, and the Suns at home at 1 o'clock on Saturday. That should be a good game to get down there to the Wells Fargo Center. Staying with tonight's game, once again, DraftKings, where we're getting our odds from. 216.5, too risky just because we don't know what we're getting from Portland.
Yeah, I would wait on it for now.
Also an Embiid too.
Yeah, as much as I would love to hand out a pick right now, I would say wait until you get a clear idea of the injury report. I still think, and wow, Embiid's assists have moved up to 5.5 at +120, so they're jumping on it. It's interesting, like the first couple games of the season, specifically in the NBA, because they're so rapid fire and happening. Same thing kind of with baseball, but these numbers move so quickly.
Mm-hmm.
So if there's something you can jump on, I'm not sure if I'm quite sold enough to buy the dip on the D'Anthony Melton yet, but 11.5 is a fine number for points wise. That seems like they're trying to believe in that coming back as well. But I would probably keep an eye on the injury report leading up to. And when Joel Embiid sits, that's a lot of shots that are freed up. So those are the times that I would recommend going around the other guys. That if Joel Embiid's out, maybe hop on that D'Anthony Melton line or hop on one of these other guys is probably my advice there.
Maxey 3.5 3-pointers at -140.
Wow.
Man, quick. It happens fast. 2 games in and everything has shifted so much. All right. What are they saying about us nationally, Sean, through 2 games? We'll finish up with this one. Anything that has, caught your attention as far as national pundits, regardless of what Charles Barkley says? I love Charles, but, I know he was very opinionated about Joel Embiid. By the way, it was funny how in the opening night, you got a Thursday night game on the road in Milwaukee, and it felt like Sixer fans were just dodging stray bullets left and right on the timeline from major media personalities. Chris Haynes coming out talking about how Joel Embiid and, the Knicks possibility. I'm always a guy that's going to say where there's smoke, there's fire, but it felt forced to me because it's game 1.
Right.
And these national media folks know how Philadelphia eats it up. And it was just on our time. It's like, all right, we don't care about James Harden. Maybe you're not getting the clicks there. Oh, but now Joel Embiid's going to end up with the Knicks. And you know what? It means nothing to me if the Knicks offered the whole damn team.
Right.
Like they should. Every team should have offered Joel Embiid or the Sixers a ton for Joel Embiid in the offseason. It was there potentially for the taking for the right deal. I don't know, but he's not going anywhere right now, and he's going to finish the season with the Sixers, correct?
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think from the Embiid standpoint, the biggest thing to keep in mind is, for starters, Embiid's a very intelligent human being, that he's watching this whole situation play out and seeing what the outcome is what is the eventual James Harden return, and what can Tyrese Maxey be as a player, that I think he's very much as in tune in that as everyone else. And the early results are pretty promising there. There is a really strong relationship between Joel Embiid and Tyrese Maxey, which is going to be a huge factor in the long run. That I do genuinely believe Embiid and Maxey get along arguably better than any co-star that Embiid has ever had. If you want to throw, him and Harden are friends and still seem to be, but there is this like older brother, younger brother kind of dynamic with Maxey that I think is very cool. And I think Embiid likes kind of having Maxey under his wing in a way. So I do think that's a saving grace and a point in the direction of why Embiid will continue to stick out in Philly. But we'll see how this season shakes out is the bottom line. As far as nationally, what I think is going around, I think the Sixers are rightfully getting their flowers for doing a really nice job of not letting the Harden stuff distract them from the actual on-court stuff. I think the Sixers have done a very nice job of continuing to have their game plan, of putting a system in place, of having guys in spots, beginning to develop the systems on offense and defense. And even with this Harden thing, which remains a huge question mark, they're not allowing that to eat into that continued development. So we're still seeing this team progress, even with this kind of huge question mark looming. And I think they deserve a ton of credit from that. And I think the game 1 loss to the Bucks, more so than anything, was a huge statement from them that they were down 19 points in the second quarter. They took that punch. They came right back, and they ended up losing by 1 point to the team that is the title favorites and are significantly more talented when you look at the rosters at this point in time. So I think game 1 is a statement. I think the Sixers are rightfully being praised for kind of staying locked in and staying on their goals while the Harden stuff figures itself out.
Well said across the board, and definitely has my attention the way that they opened up. And for a lot of people, it's like, it's the same old. Talk to me in the playoffs. Get here. Well, I feel for you if that's your take, because it does look like it's new, and it does feel like it's new. Joel Embiid still is flawed, but he's a damn good basketball player, and Tyrese Maxey is well worth your time to get onto a television and tune in tonight. Once again, Sixers, Portland Trailblazers going down at the Wells Fargo Center. Sean Barnard covers the 76ers for us here on The Gambler. Picks and Roll is where you can find all of our 76ers and NBA coverage. Sean_Barnard with the number 1. Jon Jansen, nice work.
Thank you. I did a great job today.
You did.
Yes. Yeah.
We will keep it moving. Please check out all of our podcasts once again at foxphlgambler.com. Sean Barnard, any final thoughts?
Yeah, no, I'm happy with what I've seen from the team so far. And I'll leave one more kind of long-term thoughts is don't sleep on a Joel Embiid Defensive Player of the Year season. That I think there's a real chance of the way that this defense looks to be coming together. It is very much a funneling everything towards Embiid and him elevating himself as like a true rim protector. We haven't really seen him commit on this side of the floor these past couple years. We know he's led the NBA in scoring these past 2 years. I think we're due for like a statistical regression, but not from the impact standpoint. That I think he's going to be a very high-level defender. It looks like Nurse is really leaning on him as a rim protector, and I'm excited to see how that ultimately plays itself out.
16-1 on DraftKings Sportsbook.
Okay, I like that number.
Take a flyer?
Yeah, I do like that as a flyer.
You got Jaren Jackson, you got Mobley, you got Giannis, you got Anthony Davis, Bam, Victor, Rudy Gobert, OG, and then Joel Embiid.
So he's in the mix already.
Drew Holiday immediately after Joel Embiid.
Wow, yeah, that's interesting. I personally believe like the big man kind of should generally win it. That I do think when you're a legit rim protector, you're more impactful than a guard can actually be. So I do think that it is in his favor, and I do think that the Sixers are making a point to funnel everything to Embiid defensively. So I'm liking what I'm seeing on that end as well. He had 2 blocks last night. I think that's going to be a pretty much nightly basis. All
right, Sean_Barnard. Once again, you can find him Sean_Barnard with the number 1. Everybody enjoy the game tonight. Hopefully the Sixers improve to 2-1 on this early season.